Roosevelt, but we both have to go hunting first. So he and I would probably do a little elk hunting and then enjoy some nice fresh elk cooked up on the barbie, so to speak. And I'd like to pick his brain on, he was sort of an anti-establishment kind of guy, and I kind of identify with that. So you got all the guy who ran in the Bull Moose party. So.
Shocking. You identify with anti-establishment. All right, we're back on live at KBY, 10:30 a.m. The Voice. We're at the CBO High School debate. We're talking with the Pima Young Republicans that hosted the debate. We have all four of the candidates that are running for Pima County Republican nomination for CD8. And we have an audience member that had another fun question. Those of you who are tuning back in during the breaks while you're listening to the commercials, we're having fun up here talking with these candidates, learning a little bit different about them. And your name?
Sarah.
Sarah, come on, Sarah, ask a question.
Setting it for Jesse Kelly. This microphone's high. I was wondering, what is your worst or best date that you ever went on? I learned a lot from that.
We'll go with worst. We'll stick with worst.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I just had my anniversary Friday, the 23rd of March, so I got to be careful. The best date, of course,
How many years? How many years been married?
20 years, okay? 20 years. So, of course, it was the best date with my wife. I actually met my wife at Fort Benning, Georgia. A lot of people don't know this. My wife was also a paratrooper. She also jumped out of airplanes and was in the Army, so it was a very exciting date. So, the worst date, I can't talk about it.
I've never seen Frank not have words for a question. The first ever. Do you want to do this, Jesse? You all right?
My worst date, when I was a teenage boy, I was probably about as big around as that pen. And don't get me wrong, all the ladies wanted to go out, but I finally found someone who was willing to go out with me. And I was so nervous and so uncomfortable. It was my first date ever, and it was 100% my fault. But I take her out, totally nice girl. I mean, she was willing to go out with me at the time, so I didn't care. And I thought she was the best person in the world. And we literally did not say 2 words at dinner. And I mean an hour of uncomfortable dinner. And she's clearly waiting for me to say something witty or intelligent, and I had nothing in the bag. I had nothing in the bag. Of course, I thought of everything later after I dropped her off, but I had nothing. And the best date, because this is on radio, and I'm positive my lovely wife Aubrey's listening, is every time I've taken Aubrey Kelly out for a date. The one is better than the next.
So you are truly a lady woman.
Well, I'm still single, so I've had a lot of bad dates, actually. So we won't get into the detail, but the best one is still to come in the future, right? So, I mean, I've been set up by a lot of friends and family over time and had some of those this person's perfect for you, you know? They've got a great personality, and then you sit with them and you're like, oh my gosh, I'd rather be going through survival training right now. Or root canal. So anyway, I won't name names, but I have some bad ones, but the best is yet to come.
We've all had a few of those. Dave, what about you?
I've been blessed. I've enjoyed my dating life, but I had probably the one you could not make up. I was set up it was probably about 30 years ago by friends with an absolutely beautiful young lady. We went to a movie, and after the movie we repaired and had a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, right around the corner from the theater. It's not even there anymore. It was on Wilmot off of Broadway. And through the course of the conversation, she became more morose. And it got worse, and I'm thinking, gosh, I'm a pretty funny guy, I'm pretty good, this and that. And it gets worse and worse, and now she's fully crying. And I said, did I do something? And she said, no, you did not do anything. It's just the news I got from my home today. And I said, what did you find out? She goes, my mother and father are separated. And she was very, very disturbed about it. But the part that the rest of the story, as Paul Hardy would say, what do you think the movie was we saw that night, which was picked at random? Kramer versus... It wasn't my fault, but we did not go out again.
Casanova over there. All right, let's get back to the questions. Whose turn? I'll let you all answer it. Okay, it's Donna.
All right, Frank. So Congress has abdicated their responsibilities by giving more power to unelected bureaucracies like the EPA. What will you do to rein in these agencies?
Well, again, like I said, one of the first things you do is you pass a rule, a regulatory making ban on all these bureaucracies. You require anything new that's going to impose or impact the lives of Americans to be approved by their duly elected representatives and make sure it goes through Congress. And then you start dismantling those sections of government that have been destroying this country by over-regulating us and overburdening us. So it's really quite simple. I kind of joked about it in one of the earlier debates. Whoever becomes president of the United States, the best thing they can do is keep Ron Paul really close, and you make him the Secretary of Education. In about a month, he'll have that shut down, and move him over to the Department of Energy, and he'll have that shut down, and move him over, and you just keep moving Ron Paul around until we get back to the original cabinet position.
Believe me, I would love to sit here and tell you, as soon as we win this election, we're going to go back there and every single one of these bureaucracies is going to be gone. And that's what we want, that's what I want. But like Ronald Reagan said it best, the closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government program. As great as that man was, he went there with the purpose to completely eliminate the Department of Education that is ruining the education of our children, and he was never able to do. So assuming that we cannot completely get rid of them, which we'd like to do, make sure they exist as informative bodies only. There is no way that an unelected bureaucrat should have the power over our children's education, over our light bulbs, over our windows. They literally regulate our dishwashers now, and they regulate our toilets. Only the federal government would want its hands in your toilet. The truth of the matter is we don't need them, so Congress has the power to defund them and pass a law stripping them of all regulatory power. That power belongs in the hands of the Congress, so if they pass these regulations we don't like, we can vote them out.
The overreach of the federal government is not just in the power of these bureaucratic agencies. It's these new czars that have been created. It's these executive orders that are coming out, bypassing our governmental process and bypassing Congress. So, you know, this administration is out of control as far as the federal overreach goes. So this all comes back to funding. We have got to make sure, as members of Congress, all funding comes from Congress, that we are defunding agencies and that we are reining in these unelected and czars that you can't even bring before Congress and hold accountable, and get us back to the foundation of our country. Look at the Constitution and rein in the federal government to do only the things the federal government is constitutionally directed to do, and only fund those things. So the czars are out, the executive orders, and the agencies that are just out of control.
I just listened to this and reminded that it was Ivan the Terrible of Russia who coined the phrase czar from Caesar, and here we are in 21st century America with unappointed people in our government called czars. My goodness, we've come a long way. They need to be defunded. You're absolutely correct. One of the things that we know about our country, it has never worked very well on a choke chain. We need to start telling the truth about these agencies, not just one day, not just on a stage one night, but constantly. And at budget time, find out exactly what it is they do. Take the Department of Education. Since its inception, students have not, education for students in this country is not improved. So we need to start dismantling it as quickly as possible. And the way to do that is to make it prove it has any value. It doesn't, then begin defunding it.
Next question is from Chris, and this is to Jesse.
All right, Jess. Roe versus Wade is one of the most controversial decisions the Supreme Court has ever made, and it could easily be argued as one of the most damaging to our country. Do you believe that abortion is a federal issue, or is it a state issue alone? And what circumstances, if any, do you believe that it should be legal?
That ruling should be overturned immediately. I am 100% pro-life. Under no circumstances do I believe that it is appropriate to take the life of the most innocent and most precious amongst us. I cannot make that any more clear. It is our job. The mark of a warrior, the mark of a real American citizen, is not just who you fight, it's who you protect. We must protect the most innocent and precious amongst us in this nation. I'm a proud father of 2 boys, and when I look at them, there aren't any doubts in my mind on what we should do with Roe versus Wade.
I believe that life begins at conception, and we need to make sure that the sanctity of life is preserved. This is our responsibility at the federal, the state, and the community level. Culturally, we have just gone in such the wrong direction on this issue, and we need to turn that around. So I am pro-life, I believe in the sanctity of life, and we need to protect that and preserve that, and make sure that these children are also born into a nation that we're not handing them, such horrible circumstances with the debt and other things, that they're actually going to be able to thrive. So I am pro-life, I believe in the sanctity of life, we need to preserve that, and we also need to address the community that they're born into.
I'm a Roman Catholic and I am pro-life, period.
Well, Arizona Right to Life has endorsed me in the past because of my solid pro-life record. I've upheld that in the legislature for the last 4 years. You can go look at it. It's solid. I believe there's nothing more precious, and it is the tenet of this country to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That Roe v. Wade was a mistake, by the way. It should have been a states' rights issue if we were getting back to the original question. But it's everybody's duty to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and even those that haven't been born yet. It's still life.
Thank you. Next question is Chris, and Chris is asking
Martha, what ideas do you have to reduce the massive federal debt, and would you support any budgets that spend more money than we're taking in?
We've learned as households that we got to make sure that we stay within our means, and so we need to do that as a nation as well. Our debt is out of control. The percentage of our debt of our GDP right now is 102%, and 10 years ago, Greece had their percent of their GDP was 103%. I just came from having students from Greece in my course. Military officers were not being paid to come to work and putting their uniform on every day. We are on the same path right now that Greece is on, and they are under severe austerity measures in order to get this under control, which is crippling their economy and their people. So we have got to rein in our debt. We've got to pass a balanced budget amendment. We have to cap what we're spending to make sure that we're being fiscally disciplined. It should not be anything like what it is today. We're spending 24% of the GDP by the government. And we've got to look at the whole pie chart to be smart about where we should be spending taxpayers' dollars, limiting it to what the federal government only should be doing, and getting this debt going in the right direction. It's a national security issue, it's a freedom of maneuver issue, it's a prosperity issue.
It's incomprehensible learning that we are now $16 trillion in debt, that there are some in Washington, D.C. that still want to spend more. Elections do matter. We need to charge America to understand that this can no longer take place. It is, in fact, a national security issue. It is about our survival. It is about what opportunities the young people who attend this high school and their children, your grandchildren, will have available to them, unless we have the discipline now to say no more spending. We need to, for one, flatten out immediately the spending line, and the only way that we're going to get increased revenue is to have more Americans with skin in the game because they got better jobs and we have better communities as a result of getting the federal government out of the regulatory position of regulating every single thing business does in this country. Let the entrepreneurs who built this country reign again.
Well, again, my experience is pretty clear. I got elected with a $3 billion budget deficit in a state that was spending well over $11 billion and had gone from $6 billion to $11 billion in 5 short years in spending, almost double state spending in 5 years. The first thing we did was we put the brakes on spending. The next thing we did was we bent the curve so that spending started going down. We reduced spending in Arizona 22%, more than any other state in the country. Arizona did it. We took the lead on that. The next thing we did is we started removing government regulation to create jobs and increased our revenue by not raising taxes, but by creating the thing that really we all need, and that's more taxpayers by creating jobs. And the left is out there, we need to raise taxes. No, we don't. We need to create taxpayers. That's how you generate the revenue, and that's what we did, and that's the way you balance the budget. We did it here, we can do it in Washington.
Jesse Keller.
We
We cannot continue to spend more than we take in. I won't go into all the energy again, which can pay off this debt and create the jobs we need. But I'll tell you something I've heard on the campaign trail. It's one of the things that I've heard that's a little bit kind of makes you upset with the way the government's done things. I've talked to more than one small business owner who says they no longer desire to grow. They don't want to become big businesses because then they're subject to more regulation, more taxation. Obamacare hurts them worse. That's when we've gone along the wrong path. When success has become a bad word, when business or corporation has become a bad word, that's a problem. The way to get the revenue increase we need into this government is tell the entrepreneur, tell the small business, you go for it again. We won't stand in your way and we won't take everything we make from you. You hire employees, expand your business, take risks, make investments. That's what the American capitalist society is all about. That's why we became the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, and that's why our poorest of the poor have a standard of living that is the envy of the world. It's because of economic freedom.
Right. Thank you guys very much. It's good we got time. We're going to have the candidates do their closing statement. We got about 6-7 minutes left. Those of you who are listening on air, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you've got a chance to learn about the candidates. Wish you could see the stage and the setup and the decorations that have happened. I'd like to thank Tyler Mott, the chairman of Pima Young Republicans, Robert Cannon. Young Republicans did a great job. Go ahead and buy something on the end. Make sure you get a poll on the way out. Now, Tyler will be on the air tomorrow at 7 a.m. announcing who the winner of the straw poll is. So make sure you tune in tomorrow morning and Wake Up Tucson, KBOI 1030 The Voice. Robert Cannon from the CDO Theater Manager. Thank you, Robert, for setting us up and allowing us to do what we do. Ray Allen, who's from KBOI student. He's running the engineering in the back there. And he's got a string and a couple tin cans back there. And Ed Alexander, who's in the studio. He's on the show with us every morning. So thanks to everybody for all your help. Thanks to these candidates, your supporters, the donors. Get involved, be engaged. This is the future of your country. And the people have died for the ability to vote. Make sure you get engaged as part of that. So let's do wrap-up statements. You're going to have about a minute and a half each. And let's start with Jesse, because you started at the beginning of it, you won the card, so we'll go the same round backwards on the way out.
I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I know it's late, that was long, but thank you all for coming out, listening to some political debate. Thank you again to all the candidates, for everyone else. This is what politics is all about. You're the people that will lead this country forward. For 3 years, we've had to sit and yell and complain, and yes, November was great. But I'm telling you, this year is going to be spectacular. It's not a time to be down. We get to take our representation back here in Southern Arizona. We can change the direction of this country because the American people are great enough, they're educated enough, and we have everything we need to lower taxes, to lower gas prices, to have a strong economy moving forward. We can get jobs back in this nation. We can. You have to believe that. We got to win some elections. We got to make Barack Obama a one-term president, and we will. We have to repeal Obamacare, and we will. We will be okay. Believe me, it looked a lot worse in the past for George Washington and others on down, but we always came back, and we always succeeded, because we are a nation that is blessed by God Himself. We will always be that, and believe me when I tell you, it's going to take a heck of a lot more than Barack Obama to ruin this magnificent country. I am Jesse Kelly. I'm asking you tonight for your vote. We came within 4,000 votes of winning this election last time. This time, we will finish what you all started. Thank you very much. It's been an honor to talk politics. Thank you.
So let's go to Martha McSally.
I'll stand up to finish. Thanks all for having the endurance to hang out with us tonight. You saw tonight that we're probably very similar on issues, so what is it that distinguishes us? I'd ask you to look at two things. Who is electable? This is about June 12th. This is not about April 17th. You need to be electable without compromising ideology. I am not divisive. I am not inflammatory. I am not a hothead. And I am not going to try and reinvent myself. I am who I am, which is a leader and a pioneer who served my country at the leadership level, at the strategic level, and I am electable. Next, you need to look at our records. I have 28 years of experience serving my country, commanding in combat, working on Capitol Hill, for 1 year for Senator John Kyle, personally getting legislation passed. We have to hit the ground running with someone who understands the issues facing our community, our nation, and our world. I have that experience to hit the ground running and lead and represent you. I need to fight for you. I'm ready to fight for you in Washington, D.C. I've fought for my country, and I'll fight for this community.
All right.
McSallyforCongress.com. Thank
Timing
you.
is getting slower and slower. We'll start Wade City. At 45 seconds.
I do believe what the founding fathers wanted in citizen government. I waited until I'm 57 years old, 38 of which I've spent with you in this community. As I've mentioned before, I've been involved in anything from Davis Mountain 50 to the arts, everything else in between. I've been through the good times and the tough times with you. And the interesting thing is about tomorrow we wake up, we are going to feel better tomorrow. I'm going to ask you to be coaches too, because you have friends and neighbors that should be here tonight but are not here with us. I want to ask you to get them involved as well, to honor those young people who have served this country so well since Lexington and Concord and given their lives so we could possibly vote. I intend to bring common sense back to the political debate. As far as being electable goes, I mentioned those 240 businesses. Many of them are owned by independents, Democrats, and a lot of Republicans. I'm Dave Sitton. I want to be your voice in Washington, and you can find me at davesitton.com.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, I'm the only guy up here that's been elected. I got elected with over 60% of the vote. I think that's pretty electable. Let me just tell you, it's about results, not hype. You need to look into the record and what people have said over the last couple of months of this campaign. You'd be astonished. I'll tell you right now, there are people up here that talk a good talk, but don't walk the walk. You've got to get somebody up there that you know you can count on. When the city of Miranda needed somebody to get them away from Chuck Huckleberry's oppressive control, they didn't call on the guys around here. They called on me. I live on the other end of the county, but they knew there was one guy that can get things done up there, and that's why they came to me. I've delivered results. You got to decide whether you want a lapdog in Washington to represent you or a pit bull. I'm that pit bull, and you can count on me for fighting for you and making enough noise up there where this district gets noticed and the people of Southern Arizona